know what really makes us mad is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers, and welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose 1 year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. And this week's episode is a Patreon-sponsored episode, and we'll talk about that more coming up here. And if you would like to sponsor your own episode, if you head to patreon.com/punklautopod for $10, you get to choose the album we devote an entire episode to. These are quite fun. I really like when these are done because our patrons tend to choose albums that we're not likely to choose on our own to discuss. It's how we wind up with doing, what's some good examples? Him Kerosene, the Roustabouts. What is that Ohio band that we covered with Jason? Started with a G. Gaunt. That's right. Yeah. See, we're not going to choose these albums on our own, you know, unless we were to go and do like a truly random episode and we just happen to land on one of these. So it's nice to get some outside recommendations beyond our guest recommendation episodes. While you're there, you can sign up for our $1 tier and get access to all of our weekly bonus audio, where last week, what did we do?
We did News of the World, where we go to Punk News, Brooklyn Vegan, maybe some other sites, depending, and talk about the news stories of the last month-ish.
Yeah, this one was a pretty big one in the sense that we covered a couple band breakup/cancellations, some big ones.
Yeah, there was some pretty significant news.
But those are always fun to look at just to, you know, see what else is going on outside of our sphere. And if you sign up for our $5 producer tier, you get your name said on the show every single week. So we shout out our producers now. Thank you so much to Dave Brown, host of the podcast One Band, Five Songs. Thank you to Steve Long, host of the podcast Rebel Nerd Radio. Thank you to Jason W., writer of the newsletter Songs About Chocolate and Girls. And thank you to Zach in Oregon, who built a nice fence. And as a producer, they also get access to an exclusive piece of audio, our monthly EP episode, where we just discussed Texas is the Reason and their self-titled EP. You also get a few other goodies like some outtakes, as well as some written content, such as my top 5 records of February. So lots of content over there on the Patreon. And let's get into it. So this week's episode is brought to us by our producer, Dave Brown. He signed up for the $10 tier and selected a couple different records for us to talk about. And out of the options he gave us, the record that we are talking about was released in the year 1994. And before we get into that, we have previously covered this year a couple times now. So back at episode 289, we did the Melvin's Stoner Witch. That was a Patreon-sponsored episode as well. Actually, I'm looking at this now. This is now the 4th Patreon-sponsored episode on an album from 1994. So the Melvins episode was brought to us by Steve Long. We did episode 275. We did Failures Magnified. That was a regular episode. Episode 215, we did Spark Markers, Parts and Accessories. That was a Jason W. sponsored episode. And he guested on that one as well. In episode 175, we did Jello Biafra and Mojo Nixon's Prairie Home Invasion. That was a Dave Brown sponsored episode. And in episode 73, we did Mad Balls, Set It Off, and Melt Banana's Hedgehog with Steve Doesn't of the Doesn't Suck blog. RIP Doesn't Suck. He put that blog on hold a couple years ago and never came back. And he's not really online much anymore. No. I miss his Twitter prompts. And then episode 35, we did Focused Spow and Shotmakers Believe In under our old format. So we've hit 94 quite a few times. All right. So what is going on in the year 1994?
Dookie.
Dookie's happening.
Yep. Happens pretty regularly.
I had a shirt when I was a little kid that said doo-doo happens. And I so badly want an adult version of that shirt.
Yeah. That sends a different message, though, as an adult.
That's true. It had that,
hey, what can I say? I shit my pants. Yes, the Green Day record Dookie smash hit album, we've talked about this in the past of like that succession of like the first quarter, the first half of 1994. It's like, Green Day, Drive Like Jehu, Sunny Day Real Estate. There's some other big stuff. Smash by The Offspring came out in April. There's something else. Jawbreakers 24-Hour Revenge Therapy came out in February. Same month as Dookie. I want to say there's another February record. It's like a big deal. Jawbox. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
For Your Own Special Sweetheart. Jawbox, Jawbreaker, and Green Day all putting out records the same month. It's just wild. Huge records.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a massive year. Weezer's Blue album, of course. Sunny Day Real Estate's Diary as well. Shellax at Action Park.
I mean, it's a pretty big year, and then you go to page 2. It's like, all right. Hoover, a not great Ramones record. Foolish by Superchunk. That's a bigger deal retroactively.
Yeah, I think so too.
But Shudder to Think, the now reunited Shudder to Think.
Mm-hmm.
Pony Express record.
Yep.
94 as well. So that was on Epic. It's a big year for punk bands on big labels.
Yeah, I guess that's a case of the Nirvana blew up, so then all the majors are looking for the next punk band to take over. It is funny because, like, out of the grunge bands, Nirvana was definitely the more punk influenced, and I think people really thought of them as punk. And then grunge kind of became like the term that was the industry used a lot more to really just call any band from the Pacific Northwest, or had Yarling in it as a grunge band. But it is more punk that inspired Nirvana. Being more punk is what inspired Green Day and Jawbox and Jawbreaker, all getting like major label deals. Sam I Am, Rocket from the Crypt, Jehu, all those bands. So many major label appearances from bands that you would not consider major label bands, even though they were on them. Shudder to Think is very much a weirdo band that shouldn't have been on a major label. It caused some problems for a lot of bands in the future, especially the ones who got shelved, like a Sensefield. Let's see. If it was your turn to choose the album we discussed from 94, what would you consider for us to talk about?
Probably Yank Crime by Drive Like Jehu, honestly.
I feel like that's been on the stack.
Yeah.
To do. Is that the one that's on Spotify? That one is, but the self-titled's not? Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah, because the first record is not. You can do it on YouTube, but I don't know why. That one's
Who put the first Jehu record out?
Headhunter.
So who's that label? Is it just one that just doesn't exist anymore, but still manages to hold rights?
They were a San Diego label. They did Boys Life. They did some Rocket from the Crypt stuff. They did some Rocket from the Crypt stuff that's online. So I don't know who got a hold of the self-titled Jehu record.
Do you think there's a chance that Interscope snagged rights away from it later?
But they still put up Yank Crime.
Yeah, I don't know. I genuinely do not understand what the holdup is for that record and why you can't stream that one, but you can stream everything else. They even have like that 7-inch on there. Bullet Train to Vegas. I don't know. That's strange. I don't know who we write. What congressman do we write to get that on Spotify? Yeah, that would be a good one. That would be a really good one to do. Based on where I am in the list, what could we cover? Yeah, you're right about it falling off very quickly because I'm on page 4, I believe, and there's stuff here. Like there's records from artists that I recognize. There's a Heavy Vegetable record, which is Rob Crow from Pinback's pre-Pinback band. There's a Violent Femmes record called New Times. I have no idea what that is. I don't think I've ever even seen this album cover before. There's that Millen Collins record, Tiny Toons, that they had to change the artwork for in the U.S. because I guess it's too close to Tiny Toons, the animated series. There's the Christie Front Drive self-titled, not the other one that people know better. The other self-titled from 96. Reverend Horton Heat, Liquor in the Front. Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Question the Answers. Shane McGowan and the Popes. The Snake. Yeah. Here we go. Snuff the Punk by P.O.D. Why is this on here? I guess it has a hardcore punk secondary tag. There's probably like a song on there that has like a hardcore kind of thing. Because they were the same label that had No Innocent Victim on it. And so they were playing shows with them. That record, I had it. Because when P.O.D. blew up, I bought everything they had. And that meant I have Snuff the Punk and Brown. There's some interesting stuff on Brown, but Snuff the Punk is not good. All right, here's a great one. Clumsy by Sam I Am. That would be one that I would consider talking about. We did Sam I Am way back in episode 3. I think we're due for a repeat Sam I Am record at some point.
A better Sam I Am record, too.
Yeah, we did Billy, which is like the best to that point, but far from their best records. Clumsy, Astray, even Trips is better than Billy. Yeah, that would be a really strong one. Strong one to consider. Yeah, 94 is a big year for these specific major records. But once you get like past that like wave of artists, it is very similar to what's going on either side of 94. Because we've done episodes where we went into 93 and 95, and we were kind of like surprised at how subdued they were, considering how close they were to so many like important records. And I think it's just a fluke that a lot of those all came out around the same time. Because the rest of the scene is still, you know, New Bomb Turks and a Lungfish record and Carp. So yeah, it's an important year. It's an influential year, but the year itself, outside of the top records, is a little full of stuff that's just like, huh? I don't even know that record. All right, so today's episode is a Patreon-sponsored episode, and Dave Brown selected the album for us to talk about, and he sent us a list of albums to talk about. I guess we can run through those options he gave us. So he said we could have chosen Concrete Blonde's self-titled record, which you had just discussed that, I believe the same day he sent me this list, you had talked about it on an I'm Listening.
Oh, that's funny.
And he hadn't even heard it yet.
We had both picked it. Same time. Yeah, and I listened to that record and I talked about it and I was like, you know, I kind of said all that I feel like I could say about that record in particular in that I'm Listening. I don't know how much more I could add to it. A later Concrete Blonde record I would be interested in doing, like Bloodletting, I think being the most important record of theirs. But yeah, just that first record, I'm like, not quite enough to devote an episode to, I felt like.
Yeah,
so soon, especially.
That one would probably be research heavy, and yeah, probably my take on it, since you had just talked about it. But he also selected from 2004 Three Chords and the Truth by the Ducky Boys, which was my second choice. I consider that because I used to have a compilation. Don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there was a Ducky Boys song on that comp. The rest of the comp was Madball, Northside Kings, like a bunch of beatdown hardcore that I did not like most of that compilation. But there was this one Ducky Boys song on there that was like my saving grace on that CD. That's the song I enjoyed the most because it was like catchy and melodic and like had a chorus that you could sing along to. So I was like, I could talk about I could listen to a Ducky Boys record and talk about it, but yeah, that's my only connection to that band. And then for 2012, he selected On the Impossible Past by the Menzingers. Menzingers? Man, I still can't say that name right. And we've been told we say it wrong all the time. And Menzingers.
The Manchitas. What is the right way?
I think it's Menzingers. It's a soft G, not a hard G. Like we want to say Jers, which I also think our friends also say that too. So we just all said it wrong to each other all the time. It's like zingers, like those, confectionery pastry things that you could get at the gas station. What's your favorite zinger? I like the yellow one. It's the yellow one with the vanilla cream inside.
I like the chocolate. I'm fine with chocolate. Hostess. I don't have much affection for Hostess.
Yeah, I'm the same way. We
didn't grow up eating Hostess.
No, we grew up in a Little Debbie house.
Yeah. And
I feel like Hostess their snack cakes always look smashed in the packaging.
Yeah.
Versus a Little Debbie. A Little Debbie doesn't look as smashed.
They generally just feel cheaper.
Yeah.
Pastry texture.
And I don't even know which is the older one. I wouldn't be surprised if Little Debbie was the older one because their logo is, clearly from a Rockwell painting. But yeah, I feel like Little Debbie's just a better product than Hostess. I mean, there's a reason why Hostess went out of business, right? Remember when they went out of business and they got bought by somebody else? So, and Little Debbie's still going strong and expanding into ice creams now. So,
Hostess is now owned by the Smucker Company.
Oh, Smuckers.
Yeah.
What's the other? Isn't there another brand? There's Little Debbie. There's
Tasty
Hostess.
Cake.
Tasty Cake. I feel like that's a bigger deal in the North.
Real cheap.
Or I will admit, Tasty Cake has some unique things. There's what? Entenmann's? That's the one
Yeah.
you get at the grocery store because it is the expensive one. They spend all the money on the packaging on those. Yeah. Remember Sweet 16 donuts? Fucking love those things. Anyway, so for this episode, out of the list of options that Dave sent us, we selected Groping for Trout by Sinkhole.
I know what you're thinking. I think about it too. You can look out your window, but I'm a million miles from you. So take all the good things and lock them up inside your brain. You're gonna need something to pass away. Those winter days on the way.
And a couple stats on this band. So Sinkhole were from New Hampshire / Boston. They formed in 1992, and this is the band's debut full-length album. It was released on Ringing Ear Records, and the personnel on this record is Thatch Ulrich on bass, Chris Pierce on drums, Elliot Shepard on guitar, and John Clark on guitar. And the liner notes say, "Everyone sings, but Chris sings the most." And the record was recorded by Tim O'Hare at Fort Apache, who he had previously recorded albums by Buffalo Tom, Letters to Cleo, Belly, Juliana Hatfield, Dinosaur Jr., Moving Targets, and Slapshot with their album Sudden Death Overtime, which we covered a long time ago. Other notable pieces of information, Chris Pierce was also a member of the bands Doc Hopper and Claire Mel at the same time as Sinkhole, and Ringing Ear was the label run by the members of Sinkhole. And this was their second release under that label name, following their earlier band, the AG's 7-inch in 1989. So we'll talk more about prior stuff going on with the band later. So let's go ahead and get this out of the way. What is your previous experience with the band Sinkhole?
None. No experience with Sinkhole. I've heard the name.
Mm-hmm.
I did not really know what to expect from a Sinkhole record, though. I had no context to put it in. I was just like, well, I can do that, I guess. Sure.
And same. It's a name that I knew. I'd heard of this album title before, Groping for Trout, but I'd never listened to them. I'd maybe seen the album cover before. So yeah, I had no prior experience with this band going into this episode. Just, I saw it on the list. I sampled the ones I didn't recognize, or the records I didn't recognize a little bit, and I thought this one sounded interesting. So yeah, that's kind of why I chose it. Thankfully, whenever Dave submits a record for us to talk about, he usually sends over a piece of audio. And this week is no exception, so let's let Dave talk about it.
I know what you're thinking. I think about it too. You can look out your window, but I'm a million miles from you. So take all the good things and lock them up inside your brain. You're gonna need something to pass away. Those winter days on the way.
Hey, what's up, posers? Dave Brown here. Thought I would talk a little bit about the record I'm forcing you to listen to. And this is my fourth time trying to do this audio. It's been a while since I've slapped record on the old Audacity, so I'm a little bit of out of practice. And I recorded some stuff last night. Not that anyone cares, but and I had all these delusions of grandeur of including a bunch of clips for various other bands that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. Yeah, and then I woke up and, well, actually, even before that, then I started to feel like crap, and the idea of doing all the editing just was like, no, I'm not going to do that today. So, went to bed, full expectation of, hey, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Got up this morning, felt like ass. Again, no one needs to know any of this information. I apologize. So, what do we want to talk about? Quoting Mr. Cody Rhodes. Anytime I send you guys the $10 to make you listen to something, I generally have one of two thoughts in mind. Either one, there's a very specific album I want you to listen to for whatever reason, or two, I just think to myself, oh, hey, it's been a while since I've given them some extra money. And at that point, I send in the $10 and then realize, oh, I need to give them some choices. Often what I'll do is I will send you an email with, a bunch of choices from each decade to give you all something to chew on and decide. This time I was just like, no, that's too much. So one record from each decade, and I thought I'd talk about the ones that you didn't pick, one of which I am going to make you listen to at some point. But the ones that you didn't pick from the 80s, we had 1986's Concrete Blonde self-titled debut. Ironically, I had sent the email before I'd listened to your most recent I'm Listening, in which Dylan talks about listening to this Concrete Blonde record. And Dylan, I completely agree with you. One of the things that kind of held this band back from bigger success, commercially at least, is the fact that they never picked a lane. If you listen to those records, they are all over the place. Sometimes they are all over the place in the same record. But more than anything, Jeanette Napolitano has one of the most incredible voices I have ever heard. That girl can sing. Holy crap. Okay, so from the 2000s, my option was 2004's Three Chords and the Truth by the Ducky Boys. It's my understanding this was going to be your second pick. Hopefully you'll elaborate on that in the episode. I love this album. It's one of my favorite of the decade of the 2000s, and I will make you listen to this at some point. And then the final one was from the 2010s. Now, I know, y'all don't get good ratings for the 2010s, but I adhered to the older than 10 years rule and picked 2012's On the Impossible Past by the Menzingers. This one was more, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on the record. It is, at this point, I think, a classic. It is in so many ways, it's the definitive Menzingers record. It's the one where people really started to take notice. It was on a bigger label. It has a horrendous album cover. God almighty, that album cover is awful. But it's the record that, I was introduced to the band, and I love it. I think it still holds up to this day. Admittedly, I don't listen to the Menzingers as much as I used to. But anywho, now the record that y'all did end up going with was Groping for Trout by Sinkhole. And this thing came out in... Actually, well, hold on. Okay, so... One moment, please.
We know your time is valuable. Thank you for holding. Someone will be with you as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks for holding. So, as y'all know, there are times that there are records that is really hard to figure out when the hell the record came out, because there's not a ton of information on the internet. This is one of those cases. So, Sinkhole is a band that I don't want to say it was like second tier or lower tier, because often when I hear like the use of those tier framings, I think of that as quality, and Sinkhole, quality-wise, was an outstanding band, and they were the bands that you liked favorite band. So Screeching Weasel, huge fans of Sinkhole, for example. And remember, at the time, that was before Screeching Weasel had gone off the deep end. Anywho, when you look at the release dates for this record, Discogs and Rate Your Music both say 1993. When you look at the band's website, which, yes, they actually still have a bunch of information online, the website says that it was recorded in October of 1993 and that they put out on their own label, Ringing Ear Records. I can't fathom that they would be able to then get this thing printed, pressed, and everything out before the end of 1993. Now, Spotify says 1994. And considering the information from Spotify comes from what the metadata that was uploaded by the band when they pushed this out to streaming services, because the other thing on their website, and if I'm already stepping over some talking points, please forgive me, but they pretty much have all three of their albums and their collection free to download. They're using the Creative Commons Attribution License, whatever the fuck that means. But they've also pushed it out to all the streaming services. So let's see here. What does iTunes refer to this as? Groping for Trout, 1994. And then let's see, what does the YouTubes say is the release date of this? Oh, damn it, stop. Ah, that was loud. Started playing Leaner Days. Great freaking song. So, according to YouTube, it's 1994. So I'm actually going to go with 1994. And in the midst, while you were enjoying that wonderful hold music, I was looking, because I had prepared everything for 1994. And then when, I'm looking at Discogs, I'm looking at Rate Your Music, it says 1993. I'm like, what the fuck? So, we'll, just to cover the bases, let me talk about some of my favorite records from both 1993 and 1994. And I pulled up the Rate Your Music charts for both years. And it's interesting. And I know that in the email I sent, I put it as 1993. And I'm pretty sure that's wrong. I really hate, though, that there is such little information about this, about release dates and stuff. Because you can go by, like, copyright dates, but the copyright date is not necessarily the same as a release date. So we have all of these records that came out on these small labels. And unless, the label or the artist were really big about archiving, like, the Discord folks are, there's probably no way to know for certain. But I'm going with 1994. That's what my gut tells me. 1994 was an interesting year. And so when I pulled Rate Your Music, I did the charts with just punk under popular. But then for kicks and giggles, I also did a second chart, adding in a few other genres. But that's going to be a conversation for a voicemail I'm going to send you later on. I digress. So, in 1994, my favorite album that year was Weezer's Blue Album. I mean, come on now. My second favorite was Question the Answers, Mighty 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 Boss Stones. Number 3 is Punk Rock Academy Fight Song by Down for Law. Groping for Trout is number 4. Rancid's Let's Go is 5. And Dookie by Green Day I have at 6. The thing I think with looking at these two charts is, and I understand that this is a very punk-focused show, but the greater alternative music scene that was happening in the early to mid-90s, and if not most of the 90s, has its origins in punk. Alan Cross, who is a DJ from Canada, and has a couple podcasts, but the main one is The History of New Music. And in that podcast, anytime New Wave comes up, this is how he explains it. He says, New Wave, it's not punk, but you can tell that had punk not happened, it wouldn't have happened. And wow, I worded that poorly. He words it much better. So that's what I think about indie rock, alternative rock, all of that stuff. It falls under the greater umbrella of punk rock. And even from my own memories of that time, I was still very much watching and paying attention to 120 Minutes. But this was also the time that started getting a lot of catalogs. And Sinkhole was a catalog band. They were in all the catalogs. And again, like I said, they were your favorite band's favorite band. One way that, well, okay, let me talk about how I found the band because this is going on way too long. So I discovered the band through the Punk USA comp that had a slew of pop punk bands on there. This was put out by Lookout Records. It was put together, curated by Ben Weasel. It had some of the most well-known acts on there were Screeching Weasel, Face to Face, Jawbreaker, but it also had Pink Lincolns, Beatnik Termites, and Sinkhole. And the song from that compilation is actually one of two bonus tracks on Groping for Trout, which they don't say bonus tracks on Spotify when you're looking at it, but when you read about the release on their website, it mentions that. And that song is called Caretaker. Or no, Jesus fucking Christ. Casemaker. I should have just waited until I was able to flip over and look at Spotify before I say it wrong. Anyway, Casemaker. Fucking great song.
Well, say what you want, just don't waste my time. Don't give me the face, 'cause I won't take another lie. Just be what you are, and not what you're not. 'Cause those who do this are always the happiest lot. I know you've got something underneath, but you're too far.
So, we had this album, and I'm pretty sure I actually still have the vinyl upstairs. And Emily and I, my wife, girlfriend at the time, loved this compilation. It was one of the best compilations we got at the time. There was, this was around the same time, I think we had the, one of the Journey of the Fattest comps. It might have been the first one. It was the one that had Me First and the Gimme Gimme's Country Roads on there, which is brilliant. But this comp really, I think, highlighted something that, I don't want to say special. Maybe it was special. But something about that era. So you have all of these late 80s through early to mid 90s pop punk bands. But they weren't all the same. One of the things about modern pop punk, and really pop punk that came after Green Day, is sometimes it can seem very samey. They're doing very similar things. Sure, there are some differences. You've got your more Ramones core stuff. You've got, your kind of Descendants worship stuff. You've got the emo-y things, so basically the bands that worshipped at the feet of Alkaline Trio, etc., etc. In the early 90s, there were these series of bands that were all pop punk bands, but all sounded really, really different. Some of those bands included Sicko, Big Drill Car, All, Doughboys, J Church, Gameface, the Zoinks, and none of those bands sound the same. They are all very distinctive and have their own thing going on. But they're all also playing pop punk. Or at the very least, poppy punk rock. As I remember actually referring to these bands as pop punk back at the day. But this album, and what I like about Sinkhole, is they are pulling from a lot more than just straight punk rock. There is obviously the Come Sail Away cover, which they do, I think, as a joke, but it's still fun. And you hear elements of classic rock, of power pop, of metal. The final song in the album proper, Canker, Canker, I think that's pronounced Canker. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. That song shows their metal side. And that was something that I really enjoyed about a lot of that early to mid 90s pop punk, in that it was way more diverse than you would think when you hear pop punk. The record itself. So I played a clip of Leaner Days at the very beginning of this rant, and I think that's a truly perfect song. It's a 5-star song. It is up there in the echelons with Surrender and American Girl as far as truly phenomenal pop rock songs. It's just incredible. And even, let's say if the rest of the album sucked, having that one song makes it worth the price of admission. That said, the album does not suck. It has some absolute great songs on here. Never Is Now is a fantastic song. Red Dog is a great song. Being There is a great song. Honestly, the whole thing is so good. And I was reminded of that when I re-listened to it recently. And in fact, yesterday, I think I listened to it twice. And every time I've put it on lately, I'm just reminded of, one, how great this band is. And two, I'm hearing new things in this album. And I need to go and now do the same thing with the 2 following records and the collection. Okay, I think I've yammered enough. Oh, and yeah, the final track on streaming services is the band's phenomenal cover of Eddie Money's I Think I'm in Love. And I mean, one, if you don't like the original of that song, I'm giving you side eye, okay? There might be something wrong with you. But two, this cover, and they don't do anything to change it other than just play it their way, which is with a bit more speed and a bit more energy, and it's fucking great. So I am super curious to hear what you guys think of this, and yeah, I'm gonna shut up now. Thanks, guys. Take care.
As always, we appreciate you, Dave, whenever you send us pieces of audio, because it fills in a lot of the blanks and kind of helps us, direct us, what to talk about. So a lot of stuff there that was covered. Hopefully we can remember to hit some of it. I think we may have addressed some of it already, but yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you, Dave, so much for sending that. If you've never listened to One Band 5 Songs, I highly recommend checking it out. It's currently on hiatus while Dave works on his master's degree, and I believe there's been some Spotify pulling some episodes down due to copyright, blah, 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 blah. So check out what you can from the show. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Covers all sorts of different styles of bands, and definitely check it out. I do think if he's going to continue it when he's done with grad school, it may not be on Spotify. It might be more just through his newsletter, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, highly recommend checking it out. And I've been on a couple episodes, so if you want to start there. Okay, Sinkhole, let's cover a little backstory before we get into our thoughts on the record. So, the band itself, they are from Boston/New Hampshire. I don't have a city in New Hampshire that they're from, but also New Hampshire is a tiny state. So, and my assumption is it's right up against Boston. So probably they're essentially a Boston band due to where they play. Prior to Sinkhole, there was a band called the AGs, which I believe stands for the Amateur Gynecologists. They released a bunch of 7-inches in the late 80s, some into the early 90s, and about 3 of the members of the band were in the AGs. It was Chris, John, and Thatcher played together. And that's kind of all I have on a backstory. So, not a lot of information on this band in general, especially like their beginnings. They played in the AGs together. They started their label, Ringing Ear Records, to put their own stuff out. That's the idea behind of it. And so they put the AG stuff out. They put this record out. Also, that very same year, they released the Doc Hopper album, Aloha, which I believe is the first full-length Doc Hopper record. And Chris is the lead singer of Doc Hopper. And I mentioned it earlier, but he was also playing in the band Clairmel at the same time. Chris, busy guy, continued to be a busy guy going into the future, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, the only other piece of information I have about this band is that everyone wore glasses in the band. The whole band wore glasses. So they called themselves like 16 Eyes or something like that, which I thought was pretty funny. And they have a compilation in 2000 called Respectacles with glasses on the cover. So they're a little bit of nerd rockers. So yeah, there's not a ton of backstory to really work with on this band. This is their first record, so it's to be expected. But just some musicians putting out records that they enjoy. So I mean, I guess we'll start here. What did you think of this record?
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was actually remarkably good because of how turned off by the album artwork and title I was. Very ugly album cover. Very bad title. Groping for Trout.
Man, I told Dave this. I told Dave this. Googling the word sinkhole groping for trout finds so many fishing videos. So many fishing videos. It's just like, oh, this is. I have to put sinkhole band and then groping for trout in quotes to find anything.
Well, at least it's actually fishing.
Yeah. Do you think that album cover is that bad?
Don't accidentally type Sinkhole groping for. I think it's a bad album cover. I don't think it's a good album cover.
Let's start there. The artwork looks very much like American folk style artwork. Well, I'm not the biggest fan of that kind of style. I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. But there is something funny. You brought up the artwork early. I was on some random website. I don't even know what website this was. The artwork is from an artist named Susan Hoffman. And on this website, there's like a comment section. And in that comment section was at Susan Hoffman, who wrote, "I think this is the worst album cover of all time." So it's either somebody having a joke or she really did go find it and comment on this. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's any different than a lot of records that were coming out at the same time. I don't think it's drastically any different from like some of the Superchunk records from around this time. So I don't know. I don't think it's really that bad of an album cover. The only other cover she did was like what did she do? I think it was a Butcher Babies record. It doesn't help that there's Susanna Hoffs, and apparently Google thinks that that's what I meant to type. No, that's not what I meant to type. But I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. But okay. I do like the big green
it's a combination of the element of the name and the artwork, and it feels like, oh, we got this weird art that doesn't mean anything to stick on our album cover with a joke name. Like, haha, look at this ugly piece of shit. But I mean, it's fine. You know, it's like I wasn't judging it by the cover. I was just like, oof, wow, is this gonna be some shitty punk? Which I wouldn't think that it was gonna be. I mean, I feel that Dave's musical taste I'm familiar enough with to not think that he's gonna give us something that sucks. It might not be something that we love, but I don't think. I think there's a level of standard that I had come to trust Dave to have, to where I wasn't like, oh, this is gonna be a slog. But it's just funny because it's just like let's give it a repulsive name and some folk art painting, which I don't even hate that style of art. I just don't think it's a particularly good piece. It's a very, very hit or miss style, I guess.
I do like the big green logo, the band logo there. I like that. You don't see a ton of.
Okay, yeah.
It's just big block, impact letters, lowercase letters, but I don't know. I like how it looks, especially on that like gray or slate kind of background there.
But going into it with really having no real familiarity with the band or knowing really what genre they were going to be. I mean, though I could kind of guess once I saw the album artwork where they were going, what to expect from that time period. But yeah, I enjoyed the record. I will say I ended up not being able, for whatever reason, to give this like a very consolidated, like singular listen, which was unusual because it's like a 35-minute record. It's not very long at all, but just I kept being interrupted while listening to it and not able to, so having to like stop and come back to it. So that was maybe not an ideal listening scenario, but it also maybe made it so that I came into the back half of the record with fresher ears, which is kind of a unique experience when you're listening to a record, because especially with punk records, things tend to run together. So having like a fresh entry into the middle of the record made me more critical of it. But even still, not even like super critical or negative. I just had fresh ears like coming into it at different points in the record, and like not succumbing to any level of fatigue, or not having any blurring or running together of the tracks. Things kind of felt a little more. The back half of the record felt more distinct to me than I think it might have been had I given it a full listen in one sitting. But one of the biggest things, like I could broadly categorize it, and Dave makes a really good point of poppy power pop, kind of crunchy and metallic influenced punk of this time period, and like how a lot of these bands all kind of fit in the same lane and they fit in the same category, and you would call them generally pop punk, but they don't really sound the same. And that was definitely something that I was thinking of while I was listening to the record, just like, I can't put my finger on what this reminds me of. And it's definitely not, it feels very much in that category of bands. And I think that starts to be a lot more common in this time period where regionality has less of an impact. But I couldn't tell you where they were from listening to this record. I would have maybe guessed Bay Area. Certainly not Boston.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me too. When I looked and saw that they were a Boston band, I was like, huh. That's not where I thought this was from. Partly due to one of the members being in Doc Hopper and Claire Mel. Apparently, I didn't know where those bands were from either. I thought those were bands from I think I knew Doc Hopper was like Northeast. I think I knew that already. But like Claire Mel, I thought was like Florida because they were a No Idea band. Which not all the No Idea bands were from Florida, but in the 90s, a lot of them were for the most part. I feel like it was still very Florida centric.
Claire Mel were from Florida.
Oh,
yeah.
See, okay, Now I don't know what to think.
Yeah.
Did they move? I don't understand.
Maybe.
Or did he move? Or is this just I played drums? That's it. And
I don't know. There's no story.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough because there's no story. I'd almost even argue that Sinkhole may come across historically. Oh, it's the other Doc Hopper related band. Because I think Doc Hopper is probably the more well-known of the Chris bands from this time period.
But you also could have told me this band was from Ohio. I would have been like, oh, yeah, okay, so they're like a Gaunt or a New Bomb Turks.
Right. And like you said, they have a very West Coast feel to them as well. Bay Area is... So, okay.
So I was I was also thinking of that too. It was like Sam I Am, Mr. T Experience.
Yeah. Sam I Am was the first band I thought of when I sampled the first track. That was like, oh, we're doing like a Sam I Am thing. And it's not really what they're doing. They're not that similar to Sam I Am. They've named a bunch of bands there, and I agree with a lot of them. So I think Sam I Am, I think Big Drill Car, I think Radon a little bit as well, because I think they were active at this time period or about to be active.
Yeah, Radon would fit. But Radon, that's Florida.
Yeah, Radon's Florida. Radon were really ahead of their time too. Boston is not the city that I think of when I think of this band. I don't know if that's fair, because Moving Targets are also from Boston, but I feel like but they feel like they're from Boston.
Yeah, like you can hear that Mission of Burma thing. You can also hear how their later stuff has a lot of similarities to like the Lemonheads. So that connection on the power pop side of it kind of works. Radon's a really good comparison. I feel like a Radon, J Church is a good comparison.
Yeah, J Church is a really good one.
but even still, like Dave, kind of to Dave's point again of like, well, J Church sounds like J Church. Radon sounds like Radon. You know, those bands really stand on their own.
A lot of that, I think, comes from the characteristics of the lead singers of those bands. Like, those tend to be the more defining element of those bands' sound. But I hear a little I hear a little, it's the same year as Breaking Things. Well, Breaking Things was 93. So it's right after Breaking Things. I hear a little I definitely hear Descendants in that first track. Yeah. Sam Big Joe Car, those are the first two I thought of. And yeah, Boston's the odd place for this kind of band. I guess maybe not so much anymore. I feel like any band can be from any city nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an interesting time period in particular because there's a lot of bands that kind of do similar things but have their own kind of unique identities, and how so much of that kind of becomes a platform for a new breed of punk, a very poppy but gruff punk that becomes orgcore. And listening to this record, I was definitely like, for sure, proto orgcore. Like, this is within that same category of Peg Boys and Avails and etc. It's just like there's just so many different bands that all contribute something that then becomes a little more focused into that regionality of like a Gainesville or a Minneapolis or Midwest punk, Chicago punk scenes, that where we then get a bunch of bands that come out and are like the fest bands, and they're the bands that are on No Idea Records, and they're all pulling from the same catalog of just scattered punk records from all over the place. And catalog bands, that's a really good point as well to mention, and like how that created bigger distribution for a lot of punk stuff to spread, and a lot of these sounds to break down that regionality and form a new sort of punk music identity. And then of course Green Day blows up this year, so that's another big point of reference for a ton of people going forward. But there was a certain, like, I could put it in that big category, but there was a certain quality to this record that was bugging me for like half of the record. It was like, what is it? Well, excluding Come Sail Away. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll say that
later. There's something really particular about this band. And then I think it finally clicked on Lightbulb, the song Lightbulb, clicked like a light bulb. And I was like, there's one more piece of the puzzle that I'm missing. It was the Ergs. I feel like the Ergs draw a lot from this in particular.
Yeah, the Ergs pulling from this makes a ton of sense because it's a couple reasons. Actually, quite a few reasons. I was going to save this for later. Chris Pierce recorded a bunch of the Ergs records.
There it is.
Dork Rock Cork Rod, it was recorded by Chris Pierce.
Yeah. Okay.
Chris Pierce
so
is
I'm
also
not crazy.
Chris Pierce is also a singing drummer with glasses.
Yeah.
He's proto Mikey Erg.
Yeah.
Now the Ergs are also pulling in from like Ramones core a little bit. They're pulling in from D4 Midwest kind of pop punk, but yeah.
It's not a 1-to-1, but it was just like, man, there's something about this reminds me of something particular about someone else. And I was like, who is it? Like, there's your problem, Fishbulb. It's the Ergs.
There it is.
But it's that kind of like a little bit of that wiry, angular, sort of like riffy guitar. It's very nerd rock. It's a similar style of vocal. Not exactly the same character, but
yeah,
a similar delivery tone. But
yeah, those vocals. It says everyone sings, but Chris sings the most. But that being said, if everyone sings, they all sound the same.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time like figuring out who was singing what, because I'm under the impression that some songs are all sung by each member of the band, entirely sung by a different member of the band. So, but there's only like some slight differences. There's some where I'm like, that voice is a little higher, that voice is a little smoother. But like, other than that, I feel like the same person could have sung every single song on this record. That was really hard to pick out. I don't know if I actually said my opinion on this record. so I sampled a little bit of everything, and this is the one that jumped out to me out of those 4 options that Dave sent us, and I was immediately intrigued by the guitar hook, the guitar riff on that opening track, and I was like, oh, I'm into this already. Like, I immediately was like, I like this kind of punk from this time period. Very melodic, but like got a little crunch to it. It's not like super slick, but it doesn't sound terrible either. And so that was why I was like, let's do this one. And you were along for the ride. And when I listened to the whole record, my first thought, when it was done was, I loved this. This was so much fun to me. I had so much fun listening to this record, listening to what they did. I don't think it's necessarily like the best songwriting or the most memorable hooks, but the overall package and feel of this record, I loved it. I loved the guitar tone. I liked that they kind of did a little bit of everything. That probably comes from having everybody in the band writing songs, so you get a little bit of different styles in each one. But I really enjoyed this whole record. Like I was a fan of it. I didn't try any of their other records. I don't know if they continue that sound going forward, but I really enjoyed this one a lot. And yeah, and part of that was a little bit of that musical guessing game for what's kind of happening in the album. Like, there's, out of my notes, Leaner Day is the opening track. I said that's SoCal riff on one of these songs. There's like a kind of an indie thing going on in that track, which made me think of some Archers of Loaf, Superchunk. Red Dog, I wrote down a Replacements vibe on that one. That's a little bit of a, but also with a Sam I Am sounding verse. Make Me Better has like a Heartland rock feel, which I guess that kind of fits in that Replacement sound. Being There, I was like, it's like a skate track song with a shreddy solo in there. Like, there's a twangy, Lightbulb is kind of twangy is what I wrote down there. Yeah, I just really liked the everything approach. The little, here's my influences here, here's my influences, in this song. So yeah, I've definitely enjoyed this record. You want to talk about that Styx cover?
Let's talk about the covers, because there's 2, right? I think I'm in Love, the Eddie Money one, right?
Yeah, it's a bonus track, but yeah,
there as well.
Though for the record, it is 36 minutes with bonus tracks. So How long are those last 2 songs, real quick? Casemaker is 1:45, so that's pretty short. And I think I'm in Love is 2:30. So it's still like 32 minutes without the bonus tracks. So they didn't add too much by adding those bonus tracks. So yeah, that's the Eddie Money cover. But on the proper album itself, they do Come Sail Away by Styx.
Yeah.
It starts off like an acoustic guitar, right? And he's singing it off tune. It's kind of warbly. It's very much, you listen to it and you're like, oh, so we're doing a joke version of Come Sail Away, right? And then once the full band comes in, it tightens up and it gets, the joke, I feel like, kind of falls away. And it just kind of made me think, I was like, I don't think this is a great song to begin with. It's got a really great hook right in the middle of the song. Like I guess it's the chorus, but it doesn't really repeat that many times in the song.
It takes forever to get to the come sail away with me part.
Yeah. It takes way too long to get there.
Yeah, that's not enough of the song.
Yeah. Because it's a 4.5 minute song to begin with. At least this version is. I guess I could look at the actual Styx version. This might be faster than the Styx version. Come Sail Away is a 6-minute song on the original version. So, woof. I've never listened to a lot of Styx, so I could have done without it.
Yeah, I didn't care for it. I didn't have fun listening to that. It's not a song the original is not a song that I really want to hear.
It's those
impossible to hear that song without it being a joke. Even the original.
Right. Because
maybe it's just the South Park joke.
Yeah, it's because the Cartman thing, right?
Yeah.
Where he has to sing the whole song every time he hears a part of it or something, or a line from it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's
a funny enough joke.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a joke in the sense that punk bands in the 90s, especially the first half of the 90s, they fucking loved their covers of 70s and 80s songs.
Yeah.
They did it every single punk band from this time period feels like they had one. And it was like, if you go through, speaking of punk, if you go to Songs About Chocolate and Girls, Jason W's newsletter, every other entry, he mentions that a band does a cover on it, it feels like. Because he's doing all the 90s punk records, and they all did it. They couldn't help themselves.
Yeah.
It's like a punk band writing a song about TV. Like, that's just a thing that happened for like so much of the 90s. Like, yeah. I mean, that's probably Black Flag's fault, but even not then, because the Jam were doing the Batman theme on their first record. You know, there was a lot of TV theme songs sung by bands. What's the song that like all the DC bands did? That was a TV show song. It was like they all did the same Wire cover and they all did the theme song. I can't remember what song that is now, but
I don't.
Anyway,
did they do a TV theme song cover? I know Minor Threat did the Monkeys cover of Stepping Stone.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking. You know,
that's not really I mean,
another theme song.
The song was in the show, but it wasn't like all of their songs were in the show.
Yeah,
it's not like it was the Monkeys theme song.
Yeah. So like the joke is like, haha, they're doing one of those. It's kind of a tired joke even by 94, but it's too long. The joke goes on too long. That's my biggest complaint about that one. If they did the like 5 Hour and Frenzy Everywhere I Go Amy Grant cover, like where they just played it like triple speed, that'd be one thing.
Yeah.
Shorten it.
Or if they did, a good song and just did a good cover of it, which the Eddie Money cover I feel like kind of fits.
Like, I like that one too.
That's
I like that one a lot better.
And their version of it feels less like a dumb joke, and it's more just like, yeah, we like this Eddie Money song. We did it. We did it the way we would do it. It kind of like how a Leatherface cover is like, oh, this is great.
Oh yeah. Well, Leatherface has the magic ability of being like picking the exact right song to cover that works for them. Yeah, they have amazing covers. Yeah, to me, the standout tracks are Red Dog. I like Red Dog quite a bit. That's the second track. I have a lot of 4s on here. I rate all my tracks. I have a lot of 4s. Leaner Days, Make Me Better, Waterbug, Never's Now, Lightbulb, Casemaker, technically a bonus track. My least favorite, I think my lowest rated song is probably Lemon Fantastic. It's like the second to last song on the original track listing. It's just kind of slow and kind of weak. I might say the Come Sail Away cover is maybe lower than that, but yeah, that Lemon Fantastic is my least favorite of their originals, and then I like the middle of Come Sail Away enough that it makes me like it a little bit more than that one. But otherwise, I really enjoyed most of this record. Like, there's not much that I disliked about it. I love the guitar tone on here. Really fun guitar. It's got that 90s alternative rock guitar tone that's it just like tickles my brain. Like, I love how that sounds. Bass wise, I really love, you can hear him multiple times on the record. You can hear him strumming multiple strings. Like, he's making chords. Like, I think on Leaner Days it has like I just love, you don't hear too many like strummed bass on punk records. It's usually just pluck one string, and it gives it this nice like boom boom sound. I really love that sound, and nobody does it because I guess it's too hard to find actual chords that sound good.
It's got to be the right notes.
Yeah, because otherwise it's like, what is that?
And it's got to be the higher notes as much as possible.
Yeah, he does it on Leaner Days. I think it happens again. Let's see if I can have any notes where I wrote it. Actually, I do just remembered. I don't like Wreck on the Highway that much because that's one that he does the radio effect voice on his telephone voice on his vocals the whole song. I didn't like that one. The music itself was fine, but yeah, just I hate when bands do that. I hate a radio voice.
It kind of sounds like a Bivouac Jawbreaker song.
Yeah. Yeah. It may even be trying to go for like a ham radio kind of sound too, because it is Wreck on the Highway is the name of the song. So like, it is funny in the Come Sail Away cover, they play a toy instrument. It's called they credit it as the Magical Music Thing. So apparently that was the name of that toy. Let's see if I can find it. Magical. Oh yeah. Okay. It's a Mattel toy. See if you can see it. It'll, my blurring is not working.
I'll just look it up. Magical Music Thing.
Yeah. By Mattel.
Oh, okay.
It's like a stick.
Yeah.
With looks like keys on it. You probably like can, there's not actual buttons. You're just like pressing down on this like little pad kind of thing. Yeah, I don't remember seeing one ever, but it's okay. That's what that. That's the actual name of the toy. I guess credit wise, Being There has a co-writer credit by Eric Satra, and I looked him up. Nothing I recognize. He was in a band called Necro Destruction, another one called Bogworm, and another one called F-Hole. So I don't know who any of these bands are. Oh wait, he just did photography on the F-Hole record. So yeah, I don't know. He was on a compilation. He did a song called Somebody Company by the band Screaming Broccoli. He played guitar in that band. So Screaming Broccoli, they had a record in '87. I don't have any credits, so he could be on the LP as well. But yeah, didn't really know him. That was a Vermont band too. And Being There, for my notes, is all I have is that's a fast, skate punk kind of song with a shreddy solo. So, and then somebody named The Captain does the voicemail intro on Waterbug. He has no other credits, so I don't know who that is. Recorded at Fort Apache. I feel like we've covered that studio so many times on the show. I think the Moving Targets record was Fort Apache as well. I do find it funny though that it's almost always a different like producer or engineer who records them, except for what's his name, who does like all the Pixies records and Lemonheads and all them. But
the Moving Targets record from '93, Take This Ride, was recorded at Fort Apache.
Yeah, which they had the same year. Well,
Which was
93.
produced, engineered by Glenn Foster Brown and Tim O'Hear.
So Tim's on this record too.
Yeah. So Tim was probably an engineer there. He might have owned the studio. I'm not sure.
There's a lot of people who record out of there. I mean, I think it's just like it's a big studio and multiple people just kind of work there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of stuff came out of there. I didn't read any lyrics on this record. I'm just not a lyrics guy, so I never like think to go and read lyrics to see if there's anything in there that's like kind of weird. Nothing jumped out to me. Oh, that is something. They're a band who does not take themselves seriously in any way, as far as I can tell. There are some interviews. I read one interview that they linked to directly on their website that's just every answer they gave is a joke. There's not a single serious answer in that, which was a thing at the time. And it's probably entertaining if you're already a fan of the band. But whenever you're like someone like us trying to research a band to figure out what's going on, it's very frustrating when you're like, well, that interview was useless. I got nothing out of this. I read some other interview where like the guy asked him, how many records have you sold? How many copies of the records have you sold? Which I was like, one, rude. But two, it was like the first thing he asked them to. But in the interview, he said they sold about 300,000 copies of this record, which is wild. That's a lot of records.
That might be a lie. That's a lot of records.
He said the next record sold 500,000 copies. Hey, Justin in the future here. I'm a dope. They didn't sell 300,000 copies. They sold 3,000 copies. I don't know where I got the 100,000 from, but apologies. 3,000 and 5,000 were the actual numbers. The next record was released on Doctor Strange Records, and apparently he was like a really big fan, and he distroed their first album. And Doctor Strange was pretty big.
Okay.
This is CD era. I think people moved way more units than you'd expect at this time.
Yeah.
And they toured too, so that helps. And mail order. It's mail order. I found this listed in many magazines. It was always in like the little like catalog section of a magazine though. But I did read it in like a CMJ and a couple like RPM and like a couple different other magazines. So they got it in the magazine catalogs. So there weren't a lot of write-ups about it though.
I don't know, man. 800,000 units for 2 records for a band that is now less than 1,000 listens on a month on Spotify. That is not talked about anywhere. It's just different time, a different time. I guess is what I could chalk it up to. You got what you had to choose from, and
yeah, it got covered in like Maximum Rock and Roll, Punk Planet covered it. I mean, they got in the zines and the magazines. The label itself, Ringing Ear, they also did that Doc Hopper record that same year. So I guess there's a chance that they just got it out there. That label, it was their label. They wanted to own their own thing. Like everything they put out, they wanted to own for themselves. And they put out some other records. Not a lot of stuff that I've heard of though. Bug Juice, Bender, New Sweet Breath, Huffy. Like I don't know these bands. I don't know And the reason why they said that the second record came out on Doctor Strange is because they had just put out a record by Bender. Like they had just put it out and they didn't have any money to do the next record. So that's why Doctor Strange put that one out. But then for the third album, they put that one out themselves. So yeah, I don't know what the Doc Hopper might have been the moneymaker for the label, but so they would go on to release 2 more records, Space Freak in 1995 and Core Sample in 1996. They would wind up breaking up in 1997, and their final show was playing the wedding of their band member Thatcher Ulrich. Chris Pierce is the most busy member of the band post Sinkhole, so he played and toured with Dead Guy, The Measure, Drag the River, For Science, City Mouse, Brick Mower, and Houseboat. He just played with everybody. And then he would open up his own studio, and he would record or engineer albums by The Ergs, Drag the River, For Science, The Measure, and Gel. He recorded Gel, like an early EP demo thing, like one of the first things Gel ever put out. He also recorded Protestant by Rorschach.
Weird.
That makes sense though. If he's touring with Dead Guy,
Yeah.
Rorschach has Dead Guy members in it, so that makes sense. They knew him. My guess is he was like, "We need a drummer." I think he was the Mike Yerg of his time. We need a drummer.
Yeah. Brick Mower. We did not watch them.
We did not watch them. We went to a house show they played though. They were the headliner. We were there to see 2 locals. I think. One, boo. But the other, yay. But yeah, we were there for a Brick Mower show. I don't know if he was in it at that time, but I don't know that he's playing basement shows. But he's also played with City Mouse, and I don't know that they had any big runs. That Drag the River connection, that's, that puts him in the Descendants family tree, or the family shrub is what they call it. The Descendants all Drag the River. Because I think he's even on like that Stephen Egerton 7 Degrees record that he did. So he's kind of tied in with that too. And according to Dead Broke Records coming soon section, this album is going to be reissued on vinyl by Dead Broke.
Timely.
Yeah, because it was a CD only, right? A CD cassette only release, no vinyl. Which in 93, bands were still doing vinyl, but I guess they just didn't want to spend the money on it. Because it was probably cheaper to do CD and cassette at the time. In a few years, vinyl would become a little cheaper than those, but... And at least according to Last.fm, Spotify, and Rate Your Music, they all have this as the band's least listened to album. Apparently the other 2 are more popular, but also like Rate Your Music, it's like 8 ratings versus 10 ratings. So it's not like a huge difference, but this doesn't seem
Rate
to
Your
be...
Music hates this kind of stuff anyway.
They do. I do just find it interesting that this is the record that, Dave chose for us to talk about, but it's not the record that most people listen to from them. Core Sample has a 3.31, which is pretty high. This one has a 2.83, but it's after I gave it a rating. Before it was like a 2.3 something. So it was the lowest rated as well on Rate Your Music. So, and it's funny, there is actually a write-up from the Discover tab on this record on Rate Your Music. Pretty good music blog.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, it's surprising that he hit this one, but he hits a lot of stuff.
He does. He has a wide range because he does these playlists every Friday where he like lists everything that he listened to, and it'll be like you can tell when he went to a specific website to find something, because then you'll have like 5 metal tracks in a row and then like 5 electronic tracks in a row. It's like, okay, so you hit up whatever site you use to pull those together. I mean, we could read his review. It's like a 2.5. I'll read it. I was initially ambivalent about a lot of my all-time favorite punk bands, so I keep circling back on Sinkhole, since I love bands like Sicko, J-Church, or Plow United so much, and they're always right there in the fans also like section. This is sounding better now than the last time I checked in on it, but I'm still not all the way there on them. Also, I know every punk record of this era needed the unexpected cover song. See also Lagwagon's Bad Moon Rising. But Sinkhole's take on Styx is a real no thanks moment for me. The rest of the album, decent. Lots of hooks. They got the power pop thing going on, and I can hear some fastbacks in stuff like Leaner Days. I'll see you again in a few years, I guess. Sinkhole, I'm going to go obsessively listen to Sicko and fastbacks instead, though. So, Dave, we got a Sicko fan for you. So I know Dave's a big Sicko fan. And Zach's a fastbacks fan. So we're hitting all the market there. So... I thought that was fun to mention. I like the guy who runs Discover tab. I do appreciate that there's even another review. I'll read it. Why not? Fill some time. Search reviewed this in May of last year. 2 stars, but Sinkhole is coming into their own here, but they don't completely succeed. There's a few decent tracks that hint at what they'll do, and they'll go on to do with the good Space Freak and Core Sample, but it's not nearly as memorable or exciting. There's also 2 covers that are not particularly interesting, and an attempt at Jawbreaker audio sampling that just sounds like a bad Bivouac B-side. Hey, you nailed it. Bivouac were a great band, but this isn't the place to start for newcomers. Start with Core Sample and work backwards for the best Sinkhole experience. So, very interesting. Usually, radio music reviews aren't great, and those are actually 2 pretty good ones, so I like that. Yeah, that's really all I have here in my notes. So, you want to give it a rating?
Yeah.
What do you got?
I would say like a 3.25.
I'm going a full 4.
Yeah.
I really like this album.
I enjoyed it.
I'll have to check out the others.
I'll listen to the other stuff. I might like the other stuff more. It seems like everybody else likes the other stuff more.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So
I bet if I had to guess, this is probably the first one Dave heard, and that's why this one means the most. Because that's a powerful feeling. Having the first one, because I'll mention this on the Blenderhead episode of Your Music Saved Us that I guested on. Clifton had found I believe it's the No Echo interview that we did, and he said in it, one of us said that Perfecting Loneliness was our favorite Jester Brazil record, and he was like, defend yourself. and I was just like, well, it's the first one I heard, so that's important. But
and it's clearly better than the second one.
Yeah. He's like, but not Orange Rhyming Dictionary, and I'm like, I get it. I just hate that wah guitar. So if you haven't heard that yet, go check it out. Fun episode. All right, I think that will do it for us, though. So thank you all so much for listening. And you can follow us on all forms of social media at punklautopod, punklautopod@gmail.com, and our voicemail line 202-688-PUNK. Dave actually suggested that we do like a mailbag episode where we do like voicemails and comments and questions. So maybe. I told him we'd think about it. I would hate to put it out there and plan on doing it, and then we not get enough responses to fill an episode. So
leave us a voicemail, and maybe we'll stockpile if we get enough of them quickly.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. I mean, I'd even be fine like putting out like tweets and stuff. Just be like, hey, we're doing a Q&A episode. You know, leave us a voicemail or just message us here. You know, maybe he said it's a build it you will come scenario, which I believe it could be. So we'll see about that. Maybe we'll put a prompt out there and see what kind of feedback we get. But I think that will do it for us. So thank you all so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.